A guy got thrown into hell when he was sharing his love with his girlfriend. After they finished expressing their love, his girlfriend told him she was going to take a shower. Yu-kun waited for his girlfriend Karen while she went into the washroom to shower. He lay on the bed upside down, thinking about how they were staying the whole night in the hotel, and it felt like the best thing ever. Karen was his first girlfriend since he started college. She was brave and cute, and Yu-kun loved her a lot. While he was thinking about her on the bed, he got a message on his phone, so he picked it up to check. He thought it was his mom who texted him, even though he had already told her he was spending the night out. But things got serious when he saw it was Karen's phone, and some guy named Daku texted her, asking how she was and saying he wanted to see her because he had some time. After seeing this message, Yu-kun couldn't believe his eyes and opened her phone to see the messages. Karen had texted Daku that she had arrived and also said she wanted to see him. Yu-kun got angry because he didn't know who this guy was and why his girlfriend was talking to him. He saw a message from Daku saying he was so happy and asking Karen if she would become his. The guy, Kamokura Tetsuya, was a senpai from his high school days. He was dating the girl everyone thought was the most beautiful at the university, Sakurajima Tauko. Yu-kun kept reading Karen's and the other guy's messages and couldn't believe that his girlfriend was sharing love with that guy once a week. Yu-kun thought this guy already had Tauko senpai, but he also wanted Karen to be around him. Yu-kun kept reading the messages and then left the hotel because he was super angry at his girlfriend for doing such a thing to him. After he left, Karen came out of the shower and told him she was done, but Yu-kun had already left. While walking, Yu-kun thought about how strange it was that Karen always made excuses to avoid hanging out with him. He remembered various times when he asked her to go out, but she always had an excuse, like meeting a friend, going out with her mom, or needing to finish a report due the next day. After thinking it over, Yu-kun realized that all those excuses were just so she could spend time with Kamimura. Lost in thought, Yu-kun accidentally bumped into a guy and briefly lost consciousness. The guy he bumped into angrily told him to watch where he was going, while his girlfriend asked if she was okay. Yu-kun kept walking away from the hotel, trying to process everything running through his mind. After a while, he decided to sit by the river and thought about how Kamokura had such a beautiful girlfriend and still wasn't loyal to her. He couldn't believe it and came up with a plan. If they did it to him, it was okay to do it back. The devil in him woke up, so he took out his phone and called Sakurajima Tauko at almost 11 p.m. At that moment, Sakurajima was writing notes in her register and picked up the phone, asking what was wrong for him to call at this hour. Yu-kun asked her what she said, and she asked if he didn't get it. Yu-kun then asked her to share love with him, which was what he was trying to tell her. He went to meet his friend Ishida Yuta and told him everything that happened. Ishida asked if he was insane for asking the campus queen to share love with him. Yu-kun explained that it wasn't like that. He had just found out that Karen wasn't loyal to him, and Ishida felt bad for him. Then Ishida asked what happened with Sakurajima, and Yu-kun said he had instantly apologized to her because it wasn't his intention at all. Sakurajima asked him what had happened, insisting there must be a reason for saying such a thing because she knew Yu-kun wasn't the type to say something crazy without a reason. He told her it was fine, but she kept insisting, wanting to know what it was, and she was listening to him. Yu-kun then told her everything with anger, frustration, and tears. He wasn't sure if she would understand, but she listened to him until the end. She told him to calm down, assured him that she understood, and said they would talk about it tomorrow, warning him not to speak to anyone else about it until then. Ishida listened carefully and then pointed out that Yu-kun was already talking about it with him. Yu-kun replied that Ishida was his best friend. Ishida said he had wondered why Yu-kun called him in the middle of the night, but he was glad to hear about everything that happened. Ishida assured Yu-kun that he wouldn't tell anyone and reminded him he didn't have to handle everything alone. He joked that Yu-kun should pay for the food since he ordered a steak at this hour. He then asked Yu-kun what he planned to do next. Yu-kun admitted he had no idea. Ishida asked if he was going to share love with Sakurajima tomorrow, but Yu-kun said he couldn't do that, knowing she surely had her own feelings. Ishida figured as much and then asked if Yu-kun had proof to show her that her boyfriend wasn't loyal. Yu-kun showed him the messages he saved on his phone, and Ishida said it hurt a lot. Ishida asked if he had unlocked Karen's phone, and Yu-kun said yes, knowing her pin was her ex's birthday. Ishida got angry and told Yu-kun he wouldn't advise him not to act, but he should think about the best time to show the proof to Sakurajima. He pointed out that even the calmest person could lose their cool in situations like this, and unpredictable things could happen. The next day, Yu-kun was drinking juice in the cafeteria and checked the time on his watch. He realized it was almost time to meet Sakurajima at the cafe far from the university, and hoped it would be fine. He worried it might be a problem if anyone saw them meeting alone at a cafe far away, considering Tauko-senpai and Kamokura were a famous couple at the university. But then he ground his teeth and thought about how he shouldn't have to worry because he wasn't at fault here. After waiting for a while, Sakurajima approached him and apologized for making him wait. She explained that she arrived 5 minutes ago and took the seat in front of him. Yu-kun felt awkward and apologized for what happened yesterday, saying it was in the heat of the moment that he said those crazy things. Sakurajima reassured him not to worry and expressed her desire to hear about Tetsuya and Karen's affair. Yu-kun explained everything, and she asked if he had any proof to support his claims. Yu-kun noticed she was as calm as ever and wondered if it was the right time to show the proof, but reassured himself it would be okay. He showed her the pictures of their conversations, and she looked at them for a bit. After realizing he was telling the truth, she put the phone on the table and thanked him for showing it to her. She acknowledged that it seemed real and expressed her frustration at having to accept everything. Then she asked if that was why he suggested doing the same with them, to which he apologized, saying he couldn't do it. Sakurajima explained there were 3 reasons she couldn't do it. The first reason was she wasn't sure if the evidence was real, and Yu-kun angrily pointed out he had pictures of the messages. Sakurajima replied she had been lied to before by people trying to destroy her relationship, and it could also be a prank from Karen. She doubted Karen could do something so complicated and mentioned the second reason: if they had a relationship, they wouldn't have grounds to blame them. She said if the relationship was true, she would break up with Tetsuya, but she didn't want him to accuse her of having a relationship too at that point. Yu-kun listened and said he understood. She asked if he wasn't frustrated by having to face all this. He replied he was very frustrated and didn't want this to be like his own situation. Then she mentioned the third reason: she couldn't forgive Tetsuya like this. She had to make him regret it until he wished to come back to her. Moreover, she explained that even if Tetsuya breaks up with her, he might start dating Karen, so she planned to make him regret it deeply, making it hard for him to move on easily. After saying all this, she apologized to Yu-kun for getting carried away, and told him she needed actual proof first. Yu-kun, frustrated, asked what she meant by actual proof. She clarified that she needed a photo of them going to a hotel and spending the night together. Yu-kun asked if she was considering taking this to trial, and she explained that since Tetsuya lived with his brother, they could only meet in a hotel. He pointed out that this would limit the frequency of their meetings, which should be evident from the conversation history. Sakurajima replied that she couldn't check calmly and asked how he could talk about payback with that mindset. She said they knew they met 3 times since Karen mentioned once a week and the dates matched with days when she finished classes late. They likely prioritized weekends during summer vacations, avoiding suspicions about where they went. Yu-kun was impressed and called her a detective. She suggested that their meetings probably happened on Mondays or Thursdays and said she would investigate Tetsuya's schedule to avoid being imprudent and alerting Karen. She asked Yu-kun if Karen mentioned any places she didn't go with him or if she avoided being with him. Sakurajima then advised him to use a social network to keep in touch and warned him to be careful with his research, as they needed irrefutable proof before confronting them. She clarified that this didn't mean she wouldn't be loyal to him and asked him not to misunderstand her intentions. Yu-kun paused, thinking about how strong she was while he had made a mess and said terrible things the previous day. Then she told him that she wanted to believe in Tetsuya, which is why she needed to see it with her own eyes. Yu-kun thought there was no way she was calm. They were both betrayed by someone they cared about and trusted. But even in this situation, Tauko-senpai kept going without crying or getting upset. Yu-kun told himself not to be a coward and that he needed to support her. Then they both left. Yu-kun thanked her for everything, saying he had finally opened his eyes and hoped they could get along as friends. She agreed, shook his hand, and said it would be a pleasure to be with him. Yu-kun felt reassured knowing he wasn't alone and had senpai's support, but they knew they needed to get their things ready first. They understood that if they weren't prepared, the lies would always surface, so they resolved to get decisive proof and then catch them to move forward. Yu-kun met Karen in the club he joined after starting university. One day, he mentioned that their eyes often met, but he wasn't sure if it was just his imagination. Karen reassured him that it wasn't just him, she liked him too. Yu-kun felt drawn to her and believed she felt the same way. A few months ago, Yu-kun and Karen were at an arcade playing games. He tried to win a teddy bear for her and finally succeeded. Karen was really impressed, and he joked about being good at these games. She found it adorable and thanked him for winning the bear. On their way home, Yu-kun thought it might have been better if they had a bag for the teddy bear, but Karen said it was fine as it was. She kept playing with the bear, and Yu-kun realized she had always dreamed of winning arcade prizes and carrying them home. Although he wasn't good at claw games, he was glad he could make her dream come true. Seeing her happy made Yu-kun happy too. Karen then asked where they were headed next, and he told her they were going to dinner. She replied that being with Yu-kun made everything fun. When he started university, Yu-kun and his friends were excited about the competition for Miss Jiaodo University. Life was bustling, and one day, Yu-kun's friends teased him about his relationship with Karen, calling them lovebirds. Yu-kun clarified that he had misunderstood their relationship and questioned if they were serious about their teasing. He explained that respect and love are different things. His friend joked that since Yu-kun got a girlfriend, he seemed full of himself and was just jealous. Another friend mentioned that Karen's parents were away for the weekend, so she didn't have to go home, implying they might spend the night at a hotel. Then his friends teased him, and Yu-kun thought it was the peak of his happiness until he discovered Karen was seeing someone else. When Karen met him, they went out, and she asked if he had been slacking off recently. She complained that their dates always involved the arcade, karaoke, and this family restaurant. She wondered if he planned on becoming a regular there, to which he replied that it was normal for students. Karen, frustrated, told him that other people went on fancier dates, and that she couldn't feel his efforts to make her happy. Yu-kun reminded her that she had said being with him made anywhere fun, but she retorted that it was only true when they first started dating. She accused him of always being the same and mentioned feeling used and discarded after their dates. She questioned if he cared about her, and Yu-kun realized he had overlooked her increased phone use, believing her excuse about a game addiction. He suspected it was something else but couldn't confront her about it. He apologized, explaining he had to rush home because a friend had an accident, and promised to make a reservation at a better restaurant next time. When he asked if she had other requests, she said it lost its importance when someone had to ask. Yu-kun agreed and said he would plan something special for her, suggesting next Thursday. Karen hesitated and then excused herself, saying she had a part-time job that day and he needed to pick another day. On Thursday, Yu-kun met Sakurajima and told her about Karen's part-time job excuse. He asked her about Tetsuya, and Sakurajima, sounding hurt, said Tetsuya claimed to be busy but hadn't confirmed their plans. Yu-kun reassured her that their plans were confirmed but noticed she seemed unwilling to accept the reality. To change the topic, Yu-kun told Sakurajima that it seemed Karen wasn't interested in him anymore. She asked if something had happened and if he still cared about Karen. Yu-kun explained that Karen was unhappy with their dates becoming routine. Sakurajima asked where they usually went, and he described their typical dates, meeting at a coffee shop, visiting the arcade, karaoke, or movies, strolling around the city, and ending the night at a family restaurant. Despite this, Karen felt it was all done without much care. Sakurajima paused and then said that if one likes the person they're with, anywhere can be fun. However, she noted that people get used to things. Initially, everything feels new and special, but over time, that feeling fades, and so do the emotions. She asked if it wasn't natural for things to change over time, and Yu-kun angrily mentioned that Karen said other people go on fancier dates, questioning who these other people were. Sakurajima replied that telling him not to worry wouldn't help much, and even without considering unfaithfulness, she also felt Tetsuya was hiding something. She stood up and said they needed to confirm it, which confused Yu-kun. He asked what she meant, and she inquired about his conversation with Karen. He said he wanted to ask Karen what she was up to but didn't want to make her suspicious, so he planned to make a reservation at a nice restaurant for her upcoming birthday. When Sakurajima asked when Karen's birthday was, he told her it was this Saturday. She looked shocked, so he asked why. She explained that she had been invited to stay the night, and Yu-kun asked if Tetsuya wasn't living with her brother. Sakurajima said her brother was on a work trip, which was rare, so Tetsuya had been insistent. She hadn't properly answered Tetsuya yet and wondered if saying no would lead Tetsuya to call Karen. Sakurajima then decided they would do it on Saturday and ended the conversation. Yu-kun offered to see her home, but she refused, saying she would find a taxi. She instructed him to book a restaurant for lunch and be vague about his evening plans, suggesting he purposely create an opening. As she walked away, Yu-kun thought that Senpai had made up her mind, and he needed to do the same. He took out his phone and booked a table for dinner. Meanwhile, Karen was talking to Senpai and thanked him for the necklace, saying she was really happy with it. He replied that he was glad she liked it. Karen commented that he had good taste, unlike Yu-kun. She promised to wear the necklace next time they met, and he said he would look forward to it, wishing her good night on the phone. Sakurajima overheard him talking on the phone and asked who he was speaking to. He replied it was just a friend. On the other side, Karen thought about using a necklace stand she wasn't using and took it out to display the new necklace. She placed the stand right next to the teddy bear Yu-kun had won for her, finding the setup really cute. Yu-kun took Karen to a restaurant he had booked for her birthday. Karen asked him if this was the place he had reserved, and he replied that he wanted to splurge since it was her birthday. Karen didn't react as excitedly as he expected, so he asked if she liked it. She said it wasn't that and suggested they go inside. They sat at their reserved table, and the manager asked if they wanted something to drink. Yu-kun ordered a drink, and Karen asked why he ordered just a glass, mentioning they were underage. She said she would have preferred if he, as her boyfriend, ordered a full bottle with a presentation, maybe even one from the year she was born, as a surprise. Yu-kun admitted he wasn't that sophisticated, and she rudely said that wasn't the point. Yu-kun asked her what she meant, but she brushed it off, and he thought it was hard to get her to open up once she became silent. He felt she was being more difficult than usual and apologized, telling her he had prepared a present for her. Meanwhile, the manager brought their order, and she said it was tasty and had high hopes for the primo piatto. Yu-kun asked what that was, and she questioned if he had ordered without knowing the Italian course structure. She explained that the first course is the antipasto, followed by the primo piatto, usually pasta, then the main dish, the secondo piatto with a side dish, and finally dessert, the dolce. She explained that in Japanese cuisine, rice dishes close out the meal, but overseas they come before the main course. Yu-kun asked how she knew all this, and she replied that it was natural to know such things, then commented that he didn't know anything and that it should be obvious to know about it when inviting someone. He thought it sounded like someone else's opinion, maybe because he couldn't think of anything but disloyalty. If he hadn't noticed those signs earlier, he would have thought this was cute and let it slide. Meanwhile, she mentioned that the main course might be disappointing and that French cuisine would have been better. Yu-kun told himself not to overthink it, remembering what Senpai said about it possibly being a misunderstanding or a prank. Yu-kun thought that for her birthday, he should trust her and just enjoy the moment. As they were talking, the manager brought dessert, and she asked if it was okay to order a cannolo. She explained it was an Italian fried sweet, and the restaurant was famous for it. Yu-kun commented on how much she knew and asked if she was familiar with the place. She quickly covered up by saying she had seen it in a magazine. Yu-kun ordered the cannolo for her and said he would show her the present while they waited. Karen opened the gift, revealing a wallet. Yu-kun reminded her that she had mentioned wanting one before. She thanked him, remembering the moment she had mentioned it. He looked at her and thought her smile was the same as back then. He reflected that she might be selfish, but if that was a part of love, he must have misunderstood her. Yu-kun then asked about her plans after dinner, and she said her friends from her hometown were coming to celebrate, so she needed to head home. Yu-kun, suspecting something, texted Sakurajima to tell her he had just broken up with Karen and was heading to Kanshicho. She responded that she would keep Tetsuya occupied for a while longer. He rented a car and picked Sakurajima up from her apartment. He asked how the apartment looked, and she said nobody had come or gone since she got there. He inquired about Kamokura Senpai, and she mentioned that his microwave was broken, so he was out buying a new one. Yu-kun remarked that if they were to meet up right after he left Karen, they would already be there. Sakurajima suggested they take it easy and make it a date since they had the day off tomorrow. Yu-kun wondered if that was how things were, and then Sakurajima handed him a sandwich, preparing for a long wait. They continued waiting in the car, and Yu-kun asked if their targets would really show up. Sakurajima told him to stay focused. They decided to move to the back seat for a better view. Sakurajima pulled out an SLR camera she had borrowed, and Yu-kun remarked that using her phone would be enough. She insisted on getting vivid pictures, determined not to settle for anything less. Yu-kun wondered what Senpai intended to do if they got their hands on evidence. They kept a close watch, and then they saw a shadow approaching the car. Karen told Tetsuya that the bar was really boring and she didn't go there often. But today was special because it was her birthday, and she was so happy about it. Yu-kun told Sakurajima to take a video of them arriving together, capturing every moment they were close. He thought that was definitive proof, but Sakurajima disagreed, saying it wasn't enough. Yu-kun got angry and asked if she still couldn't accept it, urging her to look at reality. Sakurajima clarified that she didn't mean that. She explained that with just this video, they could make excuses like they just had tea in the room, or it looked that way from the angle. They needed to prove they had been in the room for at least 2 hours. She offered to handle the rest herself and told Yu-kun he could go home. Yu-kun decided to stay longer, saying if they were doing this, they had to be thorough. Sakurajima told him to do what he wanted and then asked about his day with Karen. Yu-kun shared that they had ordered different things to eat, and he gave her a designer wallet. After that, they looked around shops and visited the arcade. Sakurajima asked if there was an Italian restaurant in Shibuya, and Yu-kun showed her a picture. He mentioned it was a place famous for cannoli, which Karen had told him about. Sakurajima then revealed that Tetsuya had taken her there before and they had enjoyed it a lot. She suggested they might have gone there together, and then Yu-kun asked her why she started dating Tetsuya. He asked if it was true that Tetsuya was really popular back in high school when he was in the band at the school festival. Sakurajima confirmed that he was someone who could draw people's eyes, regardless of gender. She admitted that those days made her feel she couldn't compare at all, but one shouldn't choose someone just because they are famous. She shared that Tetsuya's approach was great, and although she rejected him at first, she eventually gave in. She explained that Tetsuya was actually a really lonely person. Despite always being at the center of the group and looking confident, she understood from getting close to him that he suffered. That's why she wanted to support him, especially when he had no one else. Sakurajima then asked Yu-kun if Karen was as popular within their circle as she seemed, and he asked if Karen didn't have the reputation as the #1 beauty in their university. She asked him if he thought a beautiful or a cute girl would win in popularity among guys. Yu-kun didn't know, so she told him the cute one would win. She explained that beauty is subjective. It's just about having a face without particular faults, while being cute appeals to the heart and makes people want to protect it. Sakurajima shared that ever since middle school, she had been told she was beautiful, but she kept losing out to cute girls. Yu-kun insisted that there was no way she was losing. She confessed that she also wanted to be cute but felt her personality prevented it. She couldn't change her personality at this point and started to cry. Seeing her hurt, Yu-kun hugged her, assuring her it didn't mean anything weird. He told her he always thought she looked cool, reliable, and strong, and apologized for not saying so before. Then he said it was okay to lean on other people at times like these. Yu-kun thought Senpai had been hurt more than he had. He was sure of it and felt the best thing he could do was tell her to forget about Tetsuya. He wanted to protect her, and she responded that if it was him, she trusted him. She asked him to always stay by her side. As he held her trembling shoulders, he vowed to protect her. He suggested they stay together that night, and everything faded into the darkness. Later, Yu-kun shared all of this with his best friend, who couldn't believe it had really happened. His friend asked if he had stayed at the apartment until the last train left, seeing his crying senpai off to her house. When his friend expressed disbelief, Yu-kun said it was just what any nice person would do. He also told his friend that Taoko senpai wasn't some girl to conquer in a game. There was no way he would take advantage of her when she was vulnerable. His friend commented that real women are a real pain in situations like that. Just then, some other friends bumped into them. Nakazaki-san approached and asked if they could sit next to them for lunch. Ishida said they could if they liked, even if it was a bit far. Meanwhile, Yu-kun looked at him with anger and said he had been looking for them. He asked them to make the leaflets for the refreshment booth at next month's school festival. Ishida replied that it was actually the second year's Suzuki-senpai's job. Then, another guy mentioned that Suzuki's girlfriend had been two-timing him, so he wasn't going to do it. And Nakazaki added that she just switched to a better man. His friend commented that Suzuki's mind had crumbled just from getting dumped. Tetsuya said that was a harsh way to put it and unnecessary. He explained that to pass down superior genes, males pursue many females, and females choose the most outstanding among them. This is survival of the fittest. Yu-kun argued that humans have ethics and morals, but Tetsuya said there's nothing more ambiguous than ethics. He asked Yu-kun if he knew about the game theory scenario where prisoners, who are accomplices, are interrogated in isolation. If both kept silent, they'd serve a 2-year sentence. If one confessed, the confessor would be released, and the silent one would get 10 years. If both confessed, they'd each serve 5 years. The two prisoners debated whether to keep silent or confess. It was a straightforward dilemma. One of them suggested that it might be more advantageous to confess rather than risk 10 years for staying silent, comparing it to love. If a partner is going to be unfaithful, one might as well do the same. For instance, even if the partner stays loyal, being unfaithful could benefit the individual. However, if the betrayal isn't handled well, it could backfire. Nakazaki told Tetsuya to stop, saying that his way of thinking is often misunderstood. Tetsuya replied that pioneers and game changers are always seen as enemies by the masses. Yu-kun was surprised that Tetsuya would justify it so boldly. Yu-kun got angry because Tetsuya's thinking was so different. He and Ishida walked away, with Ishida expressing his curiosity about what would happen next. He wondered if Tetsuya would regret his actions, especially since Taoko senpai had witnessed the disloyalty. The only thing left was to confront Tetsuya with conclusive evidence. Yu-kun mentioned that Tetsuya hadn't discussed the specifics yet, and Senpai said that if they were to confront him, they should have solid proof. They should have suggested that if Tauko-senpai was taken from Kamakura by another man, Tetsuya's reaction would be priceless. He told Yu-kun that it was a good chance to heal old wounds with new love and encouraged him to go after her. Yu-kun insisted that this wasn't like a game. Back home, Yu-kun checked his old messages with Karen. He worried she might think his feelings were cooling off. He recalled that on her birthday, she mentioned friends from her hometown, which left him unsure of what to do. He hadn't said anything yet. Deep in thought, he called Senpai to ask about the trip. Karen had said it might be during the next long weekend, and Tetsuya had mentioned possibly going on a trip with a buddy from his middle school club. But he wasn't specific. It seemed like Karen was more invested in it. Senpai agreed, saying that since she discovered Tetsuya's disloyalty, she had no intention of keeping the relationship going. Yu-kun told her that he felt the same way. They decided to go ahead with their plan on Christmas Eve. He asked if she planned to wait 2 months, unsure if that was too fast or slow. She explained that her plan was to make him fall even more for her, to the point where he would depend on her completely. Then, she would strike when it would hurt the most. Yu-kun asked if that would be on Christmas Eve. She confirmed, adding that his social circle was throwing a big party that day. He mentioned he had heard rumors about the party, saying they book an entire restaurant every year. She planned to expose his unfaithfulness at the party and end their relationship publicly. She believed both Tetsuya and Karen were highly sensitive to others' opinions. By doing this, she thought there would be no greater impact. She told him they would discuss the details more tomorrow and ended the call. Yu-kun realized Sakurajima's plan was harsher than he expected. Just as Senpai had said, Karen's need for social approval was strong, and Kamakura-senpai was also quite prideful. If their plan succeeded, they would inflict significant damage. Motivating himself, Yu-kun resolved to make them regret their actions to the point they would wish they had never been together. The next day, Yu-kun showed the draft for the leaflet to Nagasaki-san, who appreciated his fast work and asked if this was his first school festival. Yu-kun said it was and that he was looking forward to it. While they were talking, Tetsuya entered the room and told Nagasaki-san that the next class was cancelled, suggesting they go eat. Nagasaki told Yu-kun he had to leave, and Yu-kun mentioned to Tetsuya that their earlier conversation was interesting. Yu-kun noted that those who betray might benefit, but the prisoner's dilemma assumes mutual cooperation is beneficial. He said that in his place, he would choose to cooperate. Tetsuya replied, to each their own, and left, each holding on to their own ideas of righteousness. At university, Sakurajima asked Tetsuya if he had decided where he was going on the trip with his club buddies. He replied that something came up, so he might go, but nothing was decided yet. Sakurajima went into deep thought, so he commented on how unusual it was for her to make that kind of face. He asked if she didn't like him going on that trip. He said if she didn't like it, he wouldn't mind backing out. She said it wasn't that and drank her juice. She explained that she just wanted to ask and told him not to worry about her. She told him to go and enjoy himself, and he called her really sweet. Sakurajima was waiting for Yu-kun to meet her, but he was late. When he arrived, he apologized and brought her coffee. She wanted to pay him back, but he said it was no big deal and thanked her for finding such a good spot. She said she would consider it alone, and they both sat together. She mentioned that people would see them if they stayed too close to the university, and Yu-kun thought she was very conscientious. 2 things were bothering her about Christmas Eve, and Yu-kun asked what they were. She said she heard that almost every member would attend the party, and she wasn't sure if exposing them would ruin it for everyone else. She asked if that would be alright, and he said he was also thinking about it, which is why they would use a secret reveal. Sakurajima asked what that was, and he explained that sometimes people confess unrequited love, joke confessions, or even breakups during these reveals. They would do it as part of the event and not discuss any of it in advance, so they needed to make appropriate arrangements. She then asked how they should prepare for it, and he said they would see. She also asked if he was friends with Ishida-kun, and he told her they had been together since middle school. She said being from the same circle was just what they needed. She asked if he could invite Ishida next time, and he wondered if she wanted to involve him too. She replied that not just Ishida-kun, she would also bring a friend she could trust. Yu-kun didn't know whom she was talking about, so he asked who it was. She said it was a girl named Kanu from the economics department. She explained that Kanu was from a different high school, so he probably didn't know her. She planned to have Kanu join their circle, and Yu-kun questioned what exactly she was trying to do. She said that with them at the center, they would increase their allies inside the circle. This way, no matter what Tetsuya and Karen-san did on Christmas Eve, they would be able to remove obstacles and deal with them accordingly. Yu-kun asked if it would go that smoothly and mentioned that Karen being popular with the boys and Tetsuya with the girls might be a problem. She replied that they needed to prepare and should talk to both Tetsuya and Karen, proceeding one step at a time. Yu-kun understood and said he would try to talk to Ishida about it. She then asked him about his other concern. He said he wasn't sure about Tetsuya, but he thought it would be hard for him to make Karen fall for him enough to be dependent on him. He said it was his problem and not something that would directly affect Senpai. She said it was a big problem because solving it would cut their problem in half. Yu-kun understood but felt down, so she asked if he wasn't confident enough. He said no and mentioned that from just looking at their messages, he could see the feelings fading. Sakurajima put her coffee on the bench and asked if she could see the messages. He showed her all of them. She read through them and noted that it had been 3 months since they started dating, which was around the time when things often start cooling off. She asked how he felt about Karen-san before all this happened. He said that with Karen being his first girlfriend, even though she could be a bit selfish at times, it was nothing he couldn't bear. He said he was crazy about her because he liked her, and the pain of being betrayed wouldn't go away quickly. Senpai thought about it, and Yu-kun clarified that he was just talking about his feelings and didn't approve of Karen-san's behavior. Sakurajima then said if he had thought it wasn't something he couldn't bear, there must have been times when Karen felt similarly. All those trivial things could have piled up, and the same went for her and Tetsuya. If they don't do anything soon, Karen-san will just drift further away, and their relationship might naturally end. Sakurajima asked him why he thought Karen-san was still going out with him while hiding her disloyalty. She believed that not being public with Tetsuya was part of it. But Karen should understand that the risk of being exposed while she has a boyfriend is higher. Even so, if Karen is still trying to show that Ishiki-kun is her real boyfriend on the surface, and if Yu-kun handles it right, he might be able to turn the situation around. Yu-kun asked what she meant by handling it right, and she told him that if he didn't like it, he should back out. She mentioned that Karen-san was totally set on going on the trip, but it seemed different for Tetsuya. She was sure Tetsuya would have cancelled if she said she didn't like it. She wondered what would happen if she told Tetsuya she wanted him to come over no matter what, the day before the trip. Then she told Yu-kun that when Karen is heartbroken over the trip getting cancelled at the last minute, if he is nice to her, she might have a change of heart. Sakurajima reminded Yu-kun that they were not fighting alone. They were comrades in arms. Yu-kun laughed at this, so she angrily told him not to laugh because it would be embarrassing for her. He apologized and said he was just happy to have her on his side. She asked curiously what he meant, but Yu-kun changed the subject and said he got it and would do his best. She encouraged him, saying that was the spirit to boost his motivation. Sakurajima told him this should be a good setup to throw Karen off, and the rest was about fine-tuning himself. She warned that just consoling Karen might be seen as a given, especially for attention-seeking types like Karen-san. After hearing this, Yu-kun commented that girls are a pain in the neck. Sakurajima disagreed, saying personal relationships are generally a pain and that it doesn't depend on gender. Yu-kun clarified that he didn't mean it that way and apologized for his words. She then suggested they take a little walk together. While walking, Sakurajima stretched to relieve muscle pain and said the feeling was amazing. She enjoyed the weather and wished it was always like this. Yu-kun asked her about the fine-tuning thing she mentioned earlier. She explained that Karen-san is weak to the opinions of the group, but he didn't understand. So she gave him an example. She says if other girls tell Karen that her boyfriend is great, and that they are jealous of their relationship, Karen will think she doesn't want to let him go. Yu-kun still doesn't understand, so Sakurajima explains that she's basically telling him to make himself more likable within their circle, especially among the girls. Yu-kun says there's no way he can do that because he's not popular and is already struggling with Karen-san. Sakurajima clarifies that she's not asking him to make the girls fall for him but to aim for people saying that her boyfriend is wonderful. She then asks him what kind of person he thinks is liked and lists qualities such as being handsome, good at sports, tall, kind, and a good conversationalist. Yu-kun comments that it sounds like Tetsuya, and Sakurajima says that's not the point. He explains that his image of someone popular is like Tetsuya. Sakurajima then explains that aside from height, the definition of someone popular changes for everyone, and even height is subjective. Yu-kun realizes she's making sense and apologizes. Sakurajima says being a good conversationalist is something he could aim for. He says he's not the type who can be at the center of the group. She tells him she doesn't expect him to become like a celebrity, just to listen to others, understand their intentions, and respond appropriately. She believes Yu-kun is capable of that and suggests they start tomorrow. She advises him to listen properly to what people say and think about what they want. Though it would be nice if he could catch the eyes of those around him, he asks again what exactly he should do. Sakurajima says that's it for the free advice and reminds him that they are comrades in arms. She points out that she is the only one coming up with concrete plans, which is unfair. Yu-kun asks again what he should do and thinks about what he can do for Senpai. When he asks, she whispers something, and he asks why she's speaking so quietly. She angrily tells him to listen the first time. She then tells him that all she wants is for him to teach her how to be a cute girl. Yu-kun couldn't believe what she just said, and she explains that she wants to live up to Senpai's expectations. Sakurajima asked Yu-kun to teach her how to be cute. Yu-kun looked at her and said her expression right then was the cutest. Sakurajima didn't get why he was so happy, so she asked him what was so funny about it. She got angry at him, and he asked if she was sure she wanted him to teach her. He didn't think his opinion would be helpful, but Sakurajima insisted because it was him she was asking. She told him she wanted him to summarize the main points in more than 5 pages but less than 10. She said if he got a C, he'd have to resubmit. He wondered why she wanted it in essay form. He thought what she said was cute but doubted she'd understand even if he told her that. So, he agreed to try and collect his thoughts, and she said she had high hopes for him. While he was thinking, she sparkled with excitement. He wondered if it was okay to make such a promise without thinking it through. Yu-kun went home and tried calling his girlfriend, Karen, but she didn't pick up. He remembered how she used to say that couples should call each other every night, which was why he was calling in the first place. He decided to try again later. After waiting a bit, he called her again, and this time, she answered. He told her it was him, Yu-kun, but she snapped that she knew caller ID and rudely asked what he wanted. Yu-kun realized she was in a bad mood and asked why she didn't answer before. She didn't give a reason and curtly told him she was going to sleep before hanging up. Yu-kun thought she might have been asleep before too, but in reality, she was with Tetsuya. Before ending the call, he reminded her of their promise to call every night, but she told him he didn't have to do it anymore. Sitting next to Tetsuya on the bed, she mentioned they'd been going out for 3 months and had other plans. So wasn't it a bother? Yu-kun asked if it was a bother to talk to him, and she said it wasn't, but calling every day felt like surveillance, and she couldn't handle that. She didn't like feeling penned in either. Then she said she might end up disliking him if she felt like she was getting broken, and Yu-kun thought, look who's talking. Karen then asked if that was all because her head hurt and she needed to sleep. They said goodnight, and she hung up immediately after. The next day, Yu-kun told everything to Sakurajima and her friend Kanzu Kazumi. After hearing it all, Kazumi said Karen was definitely with Tetsuya that night since she was so rude. Sakurajima angrily told her to stop, saying it was too much. Kazumi apologized and remarked that Yu-kun seemed too vulnerable. Yu-kun apologized to her, thinking she was exactly how he expected Senpai's friend to be. Sakurajima then apologized to Yu-kun, saying Kazumi didn't really say nice things. Kazumi pointed out there was no point in licking their wounds now, and Ishida asked if he could order food. Sakurajima agreed with Kazumi, saying it was better for him to avoid contacting Karen when she might be with Tetsuya. She noted that Karen's excuses of sleeping and having a headache were common no-nos to probe into. Kazumi advised Yu-kun that his goal should be to dump Karen when her affection for him was at its peak, and forgetting that would be a fatal error. She added that what they were trying to do was different from typical boy-girl love games, requiring meticulous attention to every word and action. Ishida listened carefully and then commented that Kazumi was reliable, though she warned him to be more cautious as it was dangerous. After that, she asked Sakurajima what she wanted them to do. Sakurajima told her she wanted them to make an expose at the Christmas party, emphasizing the importance of the reactions of those present and leaving the creation of the atmosphere to them. Ishida summarized that she was essentially telling them to run a negative campaign on Tetsuya and Karen. She clarified that she didn't want them to go that far but to spread the word within their circle. Ishida said she wanted them to make connections with potential allies, and Yu-kun was surprised he understood so quickly. Ishida explained that an expose was about revealing the truth, but their circle lacked unity, so the response might be mixed. Yu-kun wanted to avoid on-the-spot arguments, and Kazumi said they needed allies who could rally everyone together with a few words. Sakurajima wanted to entrust this to both of them because doing it themselves would seem too unnatural. Kazumi smiled and suggested they all try their best, asking Ishida if he was in too. He responded that he definitely was and would cooperate fully. He added that he wouldn't sit idle while his best friend was being made a fool of, and Sakurajima thanked him for it. Kazumi appreciated Ishida's stance and said she wouldn't be satisfied unless she got back at them too. Kazumi was always quite frank, and the first strategy meeting progressed smoothly under the girl's lead. However, it was unexpected for Ishida to join in such a serious conversation. Ishida praised Tauko-senpai and felt rejuvenated. He thought so highly of Tetsuya for having such a great girlfriend and couldn't understand why Tetsuya wasn't loyal to her, adding that if it were him, he'd regret it all his life. Yu-kun said Tetsuya's moral values were beyond his understanding, and Ishida agreed. Ishida then admitted he was a bit scared when he heard Karen wasn't loyal because Yu-kun tended to stop thinking when he got mad. He was worried about what might happen if Yu-kun got violent. He didn't want to see Yu-kun suffer like that, and Yu-kun apologized for making him worry. Ishida then said he was relieved to see Yu-kun being more rational than he expected and thanked God for Tauko. Yu-kun said he was glad he wasn't alone, but Ishida suggested they should stop because disloyalty in a relationship couldn't be resolved easily. The betrayed side either resents or forgets, but the wound doesn't heal easily. Seeking revenge means they would have to stay focused on the disloyalty until they achieved it. Even if they succeeded, Tetsuya and Karen would surely resent them, so living happily ever after might not be possible. As a friend, Ishida felt he should tell Yu-kun to move on and forget about it. However, he joked that getting closer to Tauko-senpai wasn't so bad and genuinely wished things would go well with her. Ishida said being alone wasn't enough, and they should get back at both Tetsuya and Karen. From then on, Ishida declared himself an accomplice, making Yu-kun feel emotional. Ishida told him not to cry on the train. At least, in class, Yu-kun and everyone else decided they would go through with it that night. Then he thought about how Sakurajima told him that no matter what he said, the way he looked was important. She mentioned that many people in their department didn't care about looks, but wearing old, worn-out clothes made him look shabby. She clarified that she wasn't telling him to wear expensive clothes, just to find decent ones from a normal casual store. Yu-kun admitted he didn't know anything about fashion, and she suggested they choose clothes together because it was necessary to make Karen turn around. With that, he went shopping with Tauko-senpai. While shopping, he told her he was overwhelmed by the number of options and wasn't sure what to choose. She told him not to think too much about it, suggesting that buying one of the outfits on the mannequin would be fine. He was hesitant about wearing the same outfit as a model, but she assured him it was designed to look good on anyone. Since he was on the slim side, she thought he'd look good in the shirt she picked out for him. She showed him the shirt and asked him to try it on, saying it would look great with a few matching items. Yu-kun went into the fitting room to try the clothes on, then came out to show her. She suggested trying something more casual and picked out another combination for him, which fit well. In the end, Yu-kun ended up buying 3 outfits. Sakurajima assured him she chose versatile clothes, so if he didn't mix them up too weirdly, there wouldn't be a problem. She advised him to stick with the combinations they tried if he was unsure. She also suggested avoiding patterns when buying more clothes and recommended staying away from thrift shops since it was hard to tell what was old. She told him to call her if he had any doubts. Yu-kun was impressed by her fashion knowledge, and she replied that she studied it like anyone else would. Yu-kun felt there was solid proof in how effortlessly she chose his clothes. She then revealed that she had been a model for a magazine, often hearing conversations between people in the industry and naturally picking up fashion tips. Yu-kun wasn't surprised by this revelation, saying it made sense. When he asked if she was still modeling, she said no, explaining that it was more successful than she expected and seemed like it could affect her daily life, so she quit. She asked him to keep it a secret since she hadn't told Tetsuya. Yu-kun didn't mind her modeling and asked if there weren't any cute girls around her because she had plenty of information even without asking him. She clarified that she wanted to know what made a girl cute from a guy's point of view, beyond just looks. Yu-kun didn't quite get the difference, and she reminded him not to forget to submit his essay. He agreed, wondering if relying on his feelings would be insufficient, and suggested asking friends for data. Sakurajima yelled at him not to spread their conversation around, and he apologized, realizing Senpai was seriously worried and didn't want to impose only his opinions on her. She reassured him that just his taste was fine and urged him to tell her. Yu-kun thought she was already so cute and felt it was unfair to put him in this position. He then mentioned that since he couldn't ask his friends, he might have to look up statistics on social media or ask someone from a different university. Sakurajima told him not to dig around online for wisdom. Yu-kun stayed quiet, so she asked if he was seriously going to do it. He said he wouldn't, and she sighed, saying she might be doomed. Yu-kun was searching the internet to figure out what makes a girl cute, hoping to help Sakurajima. He read through various articles but soon realized that if the answer was online, she wouldn't have asked him. She had simply wanted his personal thoughts on what makes someone cute, so he began to think about it. To him, a person was cute if they were both beautiful and kind. He thought someone who is usually well put together but shows cute body language when panicked or impatient is also cute. As he thought about it more, he found himself just imagining her and reminded himself that he was doing this because she asked. He also thought that someone who is good at cooking and family-oriented, and who relies only on him, could be considered cute. Yu-kun kept imagining her, so he told himself to stop and apologized for imagining her without permission. His mom then walked in and asked if he was okay after hearing him shout sorry, and he assured her he was fine. She told him to close the door as she was leaving for work, and he told her to take care. He then checked his phone and saw a message from Ishida, asking if he was free and could join him at a second-hand shop in Shibuya. Yu-kun agreed, thinking it would be a good change of pace. They went shopping, and Ishida finally found the clothes he was looking for. Yu-kun noticed Ishida was having fun and asked if he was okay, as he seemed to have a look on his face. Yu-kun said it was nothing much, and Ishida encouraged him to talk about it. Yu-kun asked Ishida what he thought were the conditions to be a cute girl. Ishida was surprised but said that someone has to be beautiful to be cute. He mentioned that it's attractive when someone is called the best in school. Yu-kun thought senpai had big confidence, and Ishida added that being able to change emotions according to the situation is a plus. Ishida also mentioned that blonde hair and twin tails are great, and Yu-kun thought twin tails would suit senpai. Ishida then described liking a girl in a band, and Yu-kun thought a violin would suit senpai more. Ishida said a childhood friend or a sister unrelated by blood would be exciting. Ishida said he might be going too far but he doesn't have anything against animal ears, and Yu-kun imagined senpai with cat ears. Then Ishida mentioned he couldn't forget about a magical girl and liked morning anime more than nighttime anime. Yu-kun asked what he was talking about, and Ishida replied that he was discussing the conditions for being a cute girl. Yu-kun instantly regretted asking about it but couldn't help but fantasize too. Ishida then asked if he would prefer to go out with a magical girl or one with animal ears, as he doesn't discriminate in love. Yu-kun said he didn't mind Ishida's preferences but asked him to stay away from the little sister archetype since Meika-chan would hate him for it. Ishida laughed and said he actually preferred an older sister. Ishida mentioned that Meika had been worried about Yu, saying he looked a bit down. Yu-kun said he hadn't seen Meika in a while, and Ishida mentioned that she really liked him. Ishida suggested that after the Christmas party, Yu should come to his house as Meika would be happy to see him. After Ishida went to pay for the shopping, Yu-kun looked at the sale board and realized there were still 1.5 months until Christmas Eve. He thought October was already over and he was just following senpai's plan without making any real progress. He felt he needed to change his mindset instead of just replying to senpai. Ishida came back and asked Yu to look at something. Yu-kun saw Tetsuya and a girl walking together, and Ishida noted she was 2 years senior to them. He said she didn't show her face much in the circle, and Yu-kun agreed. There was some distance between Tetsuya and the girl, but it looked suspicious from behind. Yu-kun didn't understand why Ishida was mentioning this, so Ishida explained they could use this as proof. They then realized there was a hotel nearby, making Yu-kun furious, and he vowed to expose Tetsuya no matter what. Yu-kun received a message that Karen was going to the movies with a friend and he could head home first. He thought she was probably meeting Tetsuya today too. He wondered if Karen knew Tetsuya had other girls but decided it wouldn't change his actions either way. He knew the date they were going on a trip because Sakurajima had told him it was the first weekend of next month, 2 days and 1 night. He realized it was exactly during the school festival. Sakurajima mentioned that many third years wouldn't show up at their booth, so it wouldn't stand out. She was sure they would say Karen wasn't feeling well. Sakurajima told him he should hear from Karen soon about it and asked if this was where it all began. She cheerfully welcomed the trip and didn't question, doubt, or pry into it. Yu-kun assured her not to worry as he understood. Sakurajima said she would stop Tetsuya the day before their trip as planned, and when Karen wakes up last minute, she will contact him immediately. Yu-kun asked why she thought this, and Sakurajima explained that Karen would want to complain and be angry at Tetsuya. She believed Karen would be dissatisfied with Tetsuya not prioritizing her, and it's not something she could discuss with her girlfriends. So, there was a high chance Karen would reach out to Yu-kun, her boyfriend. Yu-kun agreed that made sense, considering the circumstances, as long as Tetsuya wasn't three-timing. Sakurajima told him that if Karen contacted him, he should be kind and console her. Even if it's just a text, he should call her to make her feel that he's the only person she can rely on. Yu-kun acknowledged